pals, I'm here to do a bit of a sort of mishmash of a video. I have quite a few books out from the library. I think I've got 24 books out at the moment. 12 of those books are backlist titles that I've previously shown you, and to be honest, they've sort of ended up on the backlist of my reading because I've had a lot of new releases come in from the library that obviously people are waiting for. So I thought what I'd do is I'd talk to you about sort of priority reading I've got coming up for the next couple of months, and then also maybe have a bit of a look back on the last few months, see where I'm at with my goals. And just, yeah, I don't really know where this video is going to go. I just felt like doing like more of a chatty, casual video because I don't think I really do those often enough. So, as you may have noticed, I've been reading a lot of new releases this year. I've really been focusing on new releases, and in part I've been able to do that for a couple of reasons. I reduced my TBR to I think around 12 books, and so that's the physical books I owned that I hadn't read. So I got that down to around 12 books at the end of last year. So it meant that there was no real guilt attached to getting lots of new books in and just like reading them immediately, which I have absolutely adored. And if you've been tempted to do it, then I would like recommend you do, because it just feels wonderful to going back to the days of like being a child and a teenager and getting a book and actually then reading it. It feels really good. And also I have been doing like anticipated releases videos, which I've been doing for a few years now, but what I'd got in the habit of doing, it is mentioning like every single book that sounded like the least bit interesting to me, because I just love making big lists. And then it would come around to it and I wouldn't want to read some of them, and it would sort of feel like a bit pointless to have even mentioned them. So now what I'm doing is like making it much more condensed, so I don't really mention more than 5 books each month, I guess, and actually trying to read every single one of them. So this first book I mentioned in the January, February and March anticipated releases video, and it is the only one left from that video that I haven't read. So my plan is to every time I finish the books from a certain video is to do like a look back video where, how many times can I say the word video, where I rank all the books from like the ones I DNF'd all the way up to 5 stars, and talk about my reasoning for that, and you know, talk about whether I was right to anticipate them so highly or wrong, and maybe from that find out some more stuff about my own reading taste. So the only one I have left from the first video I did this year is Last Summer on State Street by Toya Wolff. I think I'm going to listen to this on audio and read along. And this is set in Chicago in 1999, and it's about 4 young schoolgirls, and the protagonist and I think all of her friends are black, and it's written in like a really great tone. It sounds very much like you know, a young girl who would have lived in Chicago in that time period, and I just think I'll pick up more from actually hearing like the accents and stuff. So I have listened to a bit of the audiobook and really liked it, so I'm planning to read along with it. I gave Johnny a choice of like 6 of these books last night and asked him which one he thought had the best title, cover and first sentence. This is the sort of sad thing I do when I just want to talk about books, and he always humours me. And he chose this one as the best first sentence, and that is, I've known Precious forever, Stasia a year, and Tonya for just a minute. And I agree, I think that was the best sentence of the 6 I gave him to choose from. The next book I'm going to show you won the best title. Johnny chose this as the best title, and that is the very buzzy new release, The Happy Couple by Nisha Dolan. This was in my spring anticipated releases video. I've still got a few left to read from that, this being one of them. I enjoyed her first book, Exciting Times. I think it was called Exciting Times. And I think this will be one I like probably breeze through in like a day, because I found her book really easy to read and just sort of compulsive. And yeah, I agree. I like this title. I think it's quite ominous. I think it implies that they're probably not very happy. And this is about a wedding, and it's told from like 5 different people's perspectives who are attending the wedding. And I think like secrets will be revealed. So excited by that. This next one wasn't featured in the options because I gave Johnny 6 novels to choose from, and this is a short story collection. Although I think this would probably have won best cover and title, because I think both are great, and that is Welcome Me to the Kingdom by Maya Nadone. This is a short story collection, like I said, but this is an interlinked short story collection. All the stories are set in Bangkok in Thailand, and I think some of the characters are sort of linked with one another somehow. So yeah, I'm really intrigued to give this one a go. I've had this out for the library for quite a few weeks, but luckily no one else has requested it back, but I do need to get to it. Although I'm going to have to prioritise these based on which ones are being requested back. So The Happy Couple is one of the ones that has the most people waiting for it. This next one won best cover in Johnny's opinion. I would have probably also given this best title because I think this is a better title than The Happy Couple. And that is A History of Burning by Janika Oza. I think that's an absolutely brilliant cover. And it is designed and illustrated, or it's designed by Suzanne Dean and illustrated by Mohammed Sajid. So yeah, I think that's just a beautiful cover. I don't know how well you can see it with the shiny jacket on. I think I'm going to really enjoy this. This starts in India in 1898, and we follow a young boy who's 13 who goes to labour for the British on the East Africa Railway. And then we follow a young woman and they meet one another, and I think this romance happens and they set out for a new life in Uganda. And then you follow their family from then onwards all the way to the 1990s in Canada. I really like that sort of family history. I've read a couple of books about Asian Ugandans and just think it's a really interesting time period to look at. Some awful things happened and people had to really sort of recreate their lives a couple of times over. And I think it's a really good basis for a novel. So looking forward to that one. And I think that one might also have people waiting for it. So probably need to get to that. And these next two, but only just come in from at the library. The library's like always, my library at least, is always a little bit behind the like bookshop. So like a book will come out and then the library will tell me it's in like maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, which I'm absolutely fine with. The books that I'm like 100% anticipating, think are going to be favourites, I actually pre-order like from actual bookshops, so I don't have to wait for them and I go pick them up on the day of release. But yeah, the other ones, the library tend to just be a couple of weeks behind. One of those is The House of Doors by Tan N. This is his third novel. I read his other 2 novels. God, when I was a teenager, he's had a really big gap between publishing novels. His novels are historical fiction, usually, that is Albus, usually set around some sort of political event. And without reading this one, I feel like this one has like Booker potential. So I may do a predictions video closer to the Booker announcement. We shall see. Sorry if you can still hear Albus. We've just got back we've been at Centre Parks for 5 days. We got back yesterday, and so he is currently being very, very needy. We had people drop in every day, a couple of times a day to feed them, obviously, and give them lots of strokes and stuff. But yeah, he just wants us to be stroking him the whole time, which is super cute. And the next one is a non-fiction. I've got so much fiction out at the moment. And that is Rural: The Lives of the Working Class Countryside by Rebecca Smith. I think I have to return this within a few weeks, but this is quite a short book, and so I will get through this one quickly. I'm not talking about these ones a ton because I've already spoken about them in anticipated releases videos. Then this next stack I haven't spoken about. This first one is one I actually bought. My friend got me a book voucher for my birthday back in early May, and now I am like a changed person. I didn't immediately go and spend it. I used it to pre-order a book I was really excited about, which I have since read and will talk about in a video coming up soon. And then I also, when I was in there, thought it might be nice to like use the rest of the gift card to buy a book just like spur of the moment. And one I'd heard a few people talk about was Posttraumatic by Chantal V. Johnson. And I thought it sounded really intriguing, but I didn't know it had been picked up in the UK yet. So I saw it in paperback and I had a little flick through and really liked the writing style. And so I thought I would give it a go. It says, Albus, I'm really sorry if he's being really loud. I don't know if my mic's picking it all up. You follow a woman called Vivian who to everyone else is a success story because she's a dedicated lawyer who advocates for mentally ill patients at a psychiatric hospital, but privately she contends with the memories and after effects of her bad childhood. For years she has self-medicated with a mix of dating, dieting, dark humour and smoking weed with her best friend. But a family reunion may prompt her to take a bold step she never would have thought possible before. The opening scene is told in quite a jokey manner about something that's quite horrific, and it is that there is a nurse on a psychiatric ward who is like slicing a cake for a birthday. I'll read it to you, it's very good. It was the new nurse's fault. She brought a butcher's knife onto the children's ward to cut up a watermelon for the kids as a treat. She set it down for a couple of seconds to hand a collar plate, and before you knew it, Melissa was threatening the other girls with it. The new nurse wanted to prove herself, so instead of getting a more experienced de-escalator involved, she scolded Melissa, demanding that she give back the knife. While holding out her hand to take it, it was basically an invitation. Melissa accepted, slashing the nurse's open palm. As the nurse looked down in shock, Melissa ran to her room, where after slamming the door shut, she proceeded to slice open both of the mattresses, while screaming with rage at the pain of having been born. I thought that was a really dynamic opening paragraph, and it super pulled me in, so I picked this one up. I do want to read it soon, obviously, but it may wait until the end of the month because I've got, like I said, I think I've got 5 or 6 books here that are due back by the 21st of July, so I'm going to have to prioritise those. And then I have a couple of short story collections. This next one I've mentioned in a Patreon video because I've just started reading it, and I do currently reading videos over there, but I don't think I've hauled it on the main channel. And that is We Move by Ganak Jahal. And this is quite odd for me because I usually avoid short story collections where the stories are very short. But I picked this up without knowing that, and then when I got it home, I read the first story and it was only 5 pages, but I actually really enjoyed it, so I'm going to carry on. I usually prefer short stories to be at least 15 pages in length. I just prefer those. But yeah, I really like this first story. It says it's mapping an area of West London. These stories chart a wider narrative about the movement of multiple generations of immigrants. They bring together the past and the present, the local and the global, to show the surprising ways we come together. So I'm going to read this one. I think this might have been requested back, so I think I probably do need to prioritise this one. Another one which I didn't include on an anticipated releases video because I don't think I was aware of it until it was already out, and then I saw a couple of people mention it, and that is Because I Don't Know What You Mean and What You Don't by Josie Long. Brilliant title, I really love that. I think it's a really well designed cover. I think it's really punchy. Now, the reason I'm a bit unsure about this is because I think it's supposed to be a little bit funny, and I find humour is so specific to people's tastes that I'm not sure. I think she is actually, she's a stand-up comedian. I haven't heard of her. I'm really rubbish with TV personalities and stuff because I don't watch much of those game show type things where comedians would be. But I've heard loads of people rave about this, and it says 3 teenagers believe they are witches. A woman defaces a local billboard. A bored landlord tries to influence his son's best friend. A cul-de-sac WhatsApp group discusses eggs at length. And a heavily pregnant woman finds a way to time travel, and a girl discovers joy on a stolen bicycle. Each tale paints a life in miniature and offers an escape chute from the mayhem of modern life. So, this may not work for me at all, but I heard enough people sort of talk about it and how good it is to give it a go. To be honest, the one about the teenage girls believing they're witches was the one that pulled me in. So there is that. And then next we have the beautifully published The New Life by Tom Crew. I put this up against In Memoriam by Alice Wynne, my Patreon book club pick. God, that's so shiny. Because I thought it'd be fun to put 2 new releases that are both about a gay relationship in historical England. In Memoriam 1, so we have read that, and I'll be filming my discussion video probably today. But I still really wanted to read this one, and I also think this one has a chance of making it on the book along list, so it's one I would like to get to. This one is set in the Victorian times in 1894. 2 men decide to write a revolutionary book together intended to challenge convention and the law, and they are both married to women, and one of their wives has fallen in love with another woman. It's supposed to be, I've heard quite a few people say this is just absolutely wonderful and really great in terms of historical detail, which is something I always really appreciate. So I feel like this could be one of my favourite reads of the year, but we shall see. And that again is one I need to read quickly because it is being requested back. And then when I popped into the library to pick up a couple of books yesterday, I nipped into a little American section of my library. If you haven't watched my videos before, I mention this quite often. My library has an American section where they buy lots of books that are only published in the US, in particular lots of non-fiction, and that is because during World War II I think we had a US Air Force base here, and so a lot of the sort of surviving members of those men donated to the library. So we have this American section, which I love. And I nipped in there just to sort of have a little look. And I ended up taking quite a few photographs of books that sounded really intriguing because I didn't have enough time to properly browse. I was so tired, I wanted to get home. And I didn't have enough bags to carry any more books. And I also don't know what my limit is at my library. I think it may have increased to 30 books, but I had 24 books out. So I only risked picking up one of them and got photos of all the others. So you may hear me talk about those ones quite soon. The one I picked up is a novel called Shutter by Ramona Emerson. And yeah, I was really happy to see that my library had picked this up. I think this came out last year and it's one I've been really intrigued by. I don't know if I've really heard anyone review it, but I heard quite a few people mention it as a new release. This is about a woman who is working as a forensic photographer for the Albuquerque police, and she's like really good at it. But what most people don't know is that she sees the ghost of crime victims who point her towards clues that other investigators overlook. She is from the Navajo reservation, and it's starting to look like she might be being like targeted because of her skills. So it says that she is sent to investigate an apparent suicide, and this sort of like spirit latches themselves onto her, forcing her on a quest for revenge against her killers. And Tommy Orange, who's the author of There Bear, which came out a few years ago and was like loved by loads of people, says about this book that it's utterly unputdownable, a haunting thriller written with exquisite suspense across the landscapes of the Navajo Nation and cityscapes of New Mexico about what it means to witness and capture death and be captured by it. So yeah, I think that sounds intriguing. This is a fairly short book, but I think it'll be like a really speedy read. And then I have two non-fiction books, which both of these I mentioned a while back. This first one I borrowed from the library the year it came out, which was, let me double check, 2017, God, for Non-Fiction November, and never read it and have been intrigued and wanted to read it since. And that is Bread for All, The Origins of the Welfare State by Chris Renwick. Now, it's quite embarrassing that I want to read this because I did an A-level in history, which for those of you not in the UK, an A-level is from the ages of 16 to 18. And one of the things we studied at great length was how the welfare state was sort of created and came into being in the UK. And I found it deeply fascinating. And there's elements I remember, but an awful lot I don't. And I've read quite a few books now that touch on this discussion about the welfare system in the US. And I want to know more about it in my own country. And I'd heard about this book. This could be quite dry, so we'll see how it goes, but I would actually like to read it this time rather than returning it unread. And the next one, and the last one I've got to talk about, is one that I think I mentioned in an anticipated releases video last year, and my library have just picked up a paperback copy of it, and that is Tenants, The People on the Front Line of Britain's Housing Emergency by Vicky Spratt. So this talks about people who rent in the UK and sort of like the crisis to do with that, and just how like it can be a really awful system to be part of. And like I said, I'm just interested in learning more about our sort of current welfare state. I think a lot of people who are from countries like the US obviously look at us and think, God, they have like this great system. We do have a welfare state, but it's an incredibly flawed one. And so it's something I want to sort of think more about. But in particular, this one sort of has a bit of a, I guess, personal interest to me, because from the age of 11, I lived in rented houses, and it isn't great. You could end up having to move quite a lot, because it just, it's like super costly. Actually sort of ends up costing more than it would to own a house. And so it's just really difficult. So I think this one will be really interesting. So those are all the books I have. Like I said, all of those books, plus all the books I mentioned in my summer anticipated releases video, which I'll link above, are the books I'll be focusing on for the next 2 to 3 months. I'm going to have to stop myself from like borrowing loads more books from the library. Although, like I said, there were a few books I saw in hardback that were new purchases in the American library, non-fiction books, that looked super intriguing. So I may end up picking those up as well, but I have too many books out at the moment to there's just no point. They won't get read. So I'll let them stay on the shelves, someone else to read, and then I will hopefully get to them in a couple of months. So as well as that, I thought I would just mention where I'm at with my reading in terms of, like, I had a amount of books for the year goal and also a page number goal. I am behind on both. So I wanted to read 120 books for the year because I thought 10 books a month seemed reasonable. I've only read 43 books so far, which means I'm 17 books behind, which is quite bad. And I wanted to read 50,000 pages. I have read 14,650, which means I'm 10,282 pages behind. So yeah, I've read like 29% of my page count when I should have read obviously 50% by this point. So not great. Now the reasons for this are, I mentioned in my last sort of check-in that, you know, Johnny and I had been playing like a hell of a lot of board games, and we had, and you know, that's fine. I really enjoy playing board games, and it was just really fun to spend loads of time doing it. And then in the last sort of couple of months, I guess, I've got into video games, which isn't something I've been into since I was like a teenager. But I played Witchwood, which I think took me about 12 hours. I played that, I think like mid-May. I had a week off work and I sort of nearly finished it within that week, I think. So I didn't do much reading. And then after that, I decided to play Spiritfarer, which I can't remember how many hours I spent on that in total, maybe like 35, a lot of time. And so any time I probably would have been reading, I was playing Spiritfarer instead. And since then, I've started Cozy Grove and Wild at Heart, and I've been playing both of those. And so yeah, I at the same time as like loving reading, and I have had sort of a couple of weeks at the start of June where I was just reading books over a couple of days and like just picking up the next one immediately, and I was really enjoying it. I've sort of been sidetracked. I may, once I've played like a couple more games, do like what I've played wrap up and talk about what it's like as like an adult to get back into video games, and what I like or don't like about the games I've played. Let me know if you're interested in that. But so yeah, so it's not that well, it is that I haven't been reading, and it is that I've sort of, I guess, preferred the idea of playing a game to reading. That it's not that I'm not excited about these books, it's that for me, even though I absolutely adore reading, my sort of natural inclination is to do something that involves a screen, right? Whether that's watching easy TV or like proper TV, like a drama, or watching YouTube, or now playing a video game. My natural inclination is to do any of those things because in my mind it takes like less brain power. Even though out of all of those things, I still actually get more out of reading, you know? So I definitely need to just focus in more on my reading. And I think it's going to be easier to do with all of these books out because I'm so excited about lots of them. And I think having a date where I have to return them to the library really helps with that, because then I'll probably have to wait ages to get them back because of the long hold list. So yeah, I need to sort of find the balance between, you know, the new hobby of playing video games and reading. What makes it easier is that I'm using Johnny's PlayStation to play these games. So we only have, you know, like one TV in the house with a PlayStation, which is in the living room, and Johnny is a massive gamer, and Diablo 4 came out like a few weeks ago now, and so I'm sort of limited for the time I can play on the PlayStation because obviously Johnny wants to play and he's not into reading, so it's like the thing he wants to do. So he's being very kind and letting me steal PlayStation a lot. But I am tempted, I think it's a bit too early to do this, but I am tempted in the long run, if I continue to be as into games as I am, to get a Nintendo Switch, because that means that when Johnny's using the TV, I can use the handheld. But I'm just not sure how I feel about having things on like a small screen. So I'd love your thoughts on this. I also know there's this thing called a Steam Deck, which is a handheld, which is so that you can buy games to play on your computer and then play them on this handheld. I think it's a bit glitchy because it's quite a new thing. But these video games are like cheapest out of like PlayStation, Steam and Nintendo. They're cheapest on Steam. But so far, most of these games, all of these games except Cozy Grove, I've played for free because Johnny has, it's called like a PlayStation Pass or something. Like he pays like a yearly amount and gets a lot of games for free. And there's loads on there that I'm interested in. So I think for quite a while I'm going to stick with the ones I can get for free until I'm like, super into the hobby, and then I'll start paying. So yeah, I'd love to chat about like video games and stuff. I'm not great. Wild at Heart, there's 2 modes. It's the only game I've not offered with modes. One was like easy, one was advanced, and I chose advanced because I was like, I'm not a little bitch. It's actually quite hard. I'm getting killed a lot, so I've just switched it to easy. So yeah, that I just love. I think again, for me, same with board games, yes, the actual game mechanics matters, but the biggest thing for me, maybe not the biggest, but really important to me, is the art, the music and the vibe. So like all of these games have been like visually beautiful. So yeah, that's my little update on that. Did I have anything else I wanted to mention? Yes, one other thing I will say is I did a reread TBR video a couple of months back now. I think I mentioned around 12 or 13 books I wanted to reread this year. All books that I had really loved, although a few of them I'd given 4 stars, but had like really stuck with me. And I've been wanting to pick them up for ages. All of them, like I keep thinking about them all the time. I have them like in a separate stack on my shelves now. And I haven't been. And then the other week I'd read quite a few books in a row that I'd really enjoyed. And I was like, oh, what do I follow this with? Like I always find it difficult when I've read back to back some really good books. I really struggle with what to pick up next. And sometimes I feel like I need a break. Interested to know if you feel the same. And so I thought, I'm going to go for a book I've previously read and enjoyed, because odds are it's not going to pale in comparison to the ones I've just really loved. And so I decided to start my rereading this year with A Place for Us by Fatima Farheen Mirza. I think that's the right name. And that's one of the ones I gave 4 stars. And I finished it yesterday. Johnny was having a really long nap on the sofa. He was so worn out from our break. We went away with Johnny's family, so there was like 9 of us in a lodge for the 5 days. It's quite full on. And I was really, really crying, like snotty crying at the end. And I was just thinking, if Johnny wakes up now, he's going to think, what the hell has happened? And it 100% a 5-star read. Like, I loved it. So I'm really grateful, because quite a few people over the years have said to me, I know you've read this book, but I had like a sort of life thing happen whilst I was halfway through the book, and I put it down for probably a couple of months. And it was quite a weird book to go back to, because it was the book I was reading when this awful thing happened. And so I think it suffered because of that. So part of me had always been like, I don't ever want to revisit that book. And I think enough time had now passed for me to like not connect moments in the book with this thing. And yeah, lots of people said, I really think you'd love this. And they were completely right. I thought it was wonderful. And so now I have all these books I need to read from the library. And now I'd happily now just spend 2 months just reading those books that I want to reread. So I'm definitely going to keep working through those. And for the people who are still here, if any, would you rather I just talk about those, with all the other books I'm reading that aren't rereads, or would it be more interesting for me to do like set videos where I only talk about the rereads and like maybe comment on like if I changed my star rating, if I felt differently about these books, if I noticed anything I hadn't noticed the first time? I feel like that's the more interesting way to go. But yeah, let me know what you think about that. So I think I'm going to stop now because I've really rambled on. I've got a really dry mouth now. This is the problem with these casual videos, I just keep talking. So I think Johnny and I are now going to go play Everdell, which is like our favourite board game, and we've only played, I think, maybe once or twice this year, back in January, so it's going to be wonderful to play it again. And yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on all the things I've mentioned. Let me know about video games, and if you're interested in video game content, reread videos, new releases. What do you do after you've read a couple of books you love? Do you like find it difficult to pick the next book? Do you switch to, like, if the books you've loved were fiction, do you then switch to non-fiction? That's something I tend to do. So yeah, that's all the stuff I wanted to say. Very, very rambly. But yeah, I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all, if you live in the Northern Hemisphere and you're having horrible hot weather, I hope you're coping okay. It's okay now, it's like low 20s Celsius, which is fine. I'm happy with it never going over 19 degrees Celsius, in all honesty. Yeah, like last weekend, I was absolutely miserable, like super miserable. We saw our friends on Saturday and it was lovely to see them. And we actually went on a kayak and went down the river for an hour or so, which was lovely. And I'd never done it before and I almost threw myself in the river as I was getting in. But really hot, and it just makes me feel absolutely miserable, really grumpy. But what I keep saying to Johnny is, I'm condensing all of my complaining into like 2 or 3 months of the year when it's too hot, and then I don't complain the rest of the year, whereas most people complain for 9 months of the year and then still complain a bit during the summer, don't they? So it's not that bad. But yeah, I was absolutely hating it, and I was, in all honesty, I was dreading going on holiday because I was thinking it's just going to be horrible, like it's going to be way too hot. And actually it wasn't. It ended up being a bit overcast, so it was really warm, but like you couldn't see the sun. And it ended up being like really nice weather for the holiday. And so it all worked out in the end. So yeah, I hope you're doing well. If it is hot where you are, I hope you're coping. I hope you have aircon. And yeah, love to hear how you're getting on. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.